There we go. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our November the 2nd agenda session. I now call this meeting to order. Could I have a motion on the minutes from our last meeting? Can I get a second? All right, we have a motion on the minutes with a proper second with no objections. The minutes will stand as recorded. Council, if you will note, we eliminated our Parks and Public Works Committee meeting this afternoon. Councilman Hester, we had really no agenda items to cover at the time, so we just went ahead and canceled that. Our only committee meeting this afternoon will be planning. Everybody's looking forward to that. All right, moving into our agenda this afternoon, resolutions 7A, please.
A resolution considering short-term vacation rental application number 21 STBR 170 for property located at 1707 Knickerbocker Avenue.
Councilwoman Hill.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to remove this from the agenda for today, please. The applicant has made the decision to withdraw the application.
So tonight at 6, if you will just make a motion to withdraw,
Okay,
then we can take action on it at that
I
time.
will do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to education and innovation. 7B, please.
A resolution authorizing services to be provided to 184 children through our collaboration between Head Start, Early Head Start, and Chambliss Center for Children, Hope City, Maurice Kirby Daycare Center, Children's Academy for Education and Learning, Child Care Network, Redlands and Hamel Road, and Signal Center, which the Head Start classrooms will serve 183 and 4-year-old children for an amount of $323,399.28. And the Early Head Start classrooms will serve 66 infant and toddler children for an amount of $503,578.24 for a total amount of $826,977.52.
All right, any questions or comments on 7B? 7C, please.
A resolution authorizing services to be provided to 184 children through collaboration between Early Head Start Expansion Child Care Partnership Grant and Chambliss Center for Children, Hope City, Maurice Kirby Daycare Center, Newton Center, Child Care Network, Redlands, and Signal Center, which the Early Head Start Expansion Child Care Partnership classrooms will serve 134 infant and toddler children for an amount of $1,204,070.40.
Questions or comments? Very well. Art Council, any purchase questions for this afternoon regarding any of our purchase items? All right. Not seeing any lights. Turning now to our 2-week agenda, November the 9th. Any questions or comments on our November the 9th council meeting? Moving to future considerations. And I don't see Chief Hyman here, just by way, Jonah, we had a discussion earlier about a purchase item about getting it on the 2-week, the future considerations for the purchase of a fire truck. And I just want to make the council aware that that was coming, but it may come in the form of a purchase item. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Which will be a I'm assuming a substantial amount.
They're pretty heavy trucks. So
Yeah. Okay. All right. I see no. Mr. Vice Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, Joda or Julia, I don't remember if I saw it or not. Were there RFPs to be covered this evening? There were none? Okay,
No.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. All right, and I do want to announce again, and I'll try to do so again at 6, that it is my intentions to end our Zoom platform the end of this month. Our COVID cases are trending in the right direction. They're trending down. We have increased the number of seating here in the council chambers. So I'm anticipating by the end of the month that we will no longer be on our Zoom platform, but feel free to join us through Zoom by the end or through the end of this month. All right, is there anything else that needs to come before the council at this time before we turn the floor over to Councilman Ledford for planning and zoning? All right, I am seeing no lights. At this time, I will turn the chair over to our planning and zoning chairman, Councilman Ledford.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Planning and Zoning for November 2nd, 2021. Can I go ahead and entertain a motion for our minutes, please? Thank you. Without objection, minutes will stand. Ms. Rennick, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Great. We're going to have a great time today. We have about 15 items and 2 special exceptions permit to go over, but we're going to do something a little bit different, I think. Will you want to walk us through it for efficiency's sake?
Sure. This month we have 15 cases I just mentioned. We also have, based on Planning Commission's load for the November meeting, and then there's a little bit fewer for December, but because we have such a high caseload, I was going to do a little bit different, kind of give you an overview snapshot of everything on the agenda, and then focus on 3 or 4 important items. I know you've all received the packets when they're just cases prior to the Planning Commission and have all the information. All the other information still in the slides if you want to focus on any of it, but I'll do that at your request, but just kind of give you an overview as a reminder of the case. This month we had one case that had in-person opposition at Planning Commission. We had several cases that had that sent us emails in opposition or support. All 15 cases are recommended in some form by Planning Commission for approval or approval with conditions. Some of that, the Planning Commission recommended denial, but for one zone, but recommended another zone. And at this point, we're not aware of any applicant that has questions about their zoning cases or the conditions, or has any concerns about the proposed action in front of you. And we also have one ordinance amendment that I'll touch on a little bit longer since it amends the zoning ordinance. So based on that, today I was just going to do the review, the request, kind of staff findings, Planning Commission recommendation, and some extra information where if staff recommended denial or something, just to let you know how we got to where we are. So the first case it's in North Chattanooga. It's a request to rezone from R1 to RTZ, 0 lot line zone, residential townhouse, 0 lot line zone for 2 units, 706 Miriam Street. And the plan for the area recommends an urban residential development form, which is compatible with the proposal. Showing the site plan here, which shows 2 detached residential units, which is allowed in that zone, but because it has that townhouse name of the zone, sometimes it's not real clear. So I'm just showing that for clarity's sake. Staff found that the request was compatible with the plan and adjacent land uses and development form as a single family detached residential use only. There was no one in opposition at Planning Commission, but staff did receive an email just noting that their council member had not been contacted at that time and that it was an R1 neighborhood. So Planning Commission found very similar to staff that it could be compatible, again, with the one condition of single-family detached residential use only. And I believe at Planning Commission, Councilman Ledford noted that the applicant had contacted Councilman Henderson, if I'm remembering that correctly.
That's correct, Karen.
Okay. And that's all for this case, unless there are other questions.
Very good. I don't see it. There it is. Chairman?
I guess I need to hit that button too. There's really not any opposition to the form of what they're wanting to do, but the problem, and I was present at the Hill City neighborhood meeting when they voted to oppose this rezoning, simply because it would put an RTZ sort of in the sea of R1s. And I will say, since I've been on this council, the Hill City neighborhood has worked diligently to keep Hill City in an R1 form or an R1 zone. So at this time, based on the Hill City neighborhood vote, I will be requesting a denial of this, not because of, like I said, the form, but just because it puts an RTZ sort of in the sea of R1s, and they are concerned that this could set a precedence of other RTZs going in, which may change the form. So that seems to be the problem. And, you know, that it's, I think it comes down to really a square footage problem, wasn't it, of how big the lot was?
That's correct.
Because R1 needs a little bit more square footage to put 2 residents there. So no one was really opposed to the design or to the plan. It was just that RTZ designation that they really were opposed to. So I'll be requesting denial.
Thank you for your comments, Chairman. Any other lights, comments on this particular case? Let me take the moment real quick while we're going through this process to say, this is why planning and zoning is working efficiently. It's because of the engagement of every member of this council in your district. Zoning is very, very important. You've heard me say this all the time, which is one of our most important charges per our city charter. And this council takes very seriously that charge. And I appreciate everyone's engagement and working with me on your particular cases all the way through Planning Commission and down to the committee meetings. And this is what makes it efficient. So in the spirit of efficiency, Karen,
Okay.
6C.
This is a request to rezone property from C5 neighborhood commercial to the UGC urban general commercial zone. This is in the Riverview area. There's a mix of residential and commercial zoning in the area, and the property is at 1310 Hanover Street, and the proposed use is a wine bar and shop. Just to orient you, this is about 225 feet to the east of Hickson Pike, just kind of south of that CVS complex. So the staff found we don't have an adopted plan for this area, so we defer to the comprehensive plan. And staff found it was compatible with the comprehensive plan, compatible with adjacent land uses and development form, but recommended to ensure conditions for compatibility. There was no opposition at Planning Commission, and Planning Commission had the same findings and recommended approval subject to conditions. Some of the more intense uses prohibited, building height limited to 2.5 stories or 35 feet, retaining the existing structure, and no dumpsters located within 30 feet. And this is partly in response to the residential property south and abutting this site.
Thank you, Karen. Councilwoman Hill, any comments you'd like to share?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. This is actually going to be a locally owned bookstore. It's going to be called The Book and Cover, and they open on Thursday, and then they'll be extending their services into this wine bar. But it's just a really neat addition to District 2, and I encourage all of you to come do a little Christmas shopping over there. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you for your comments. Vice Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have frequented their neighbor wine bar and would say that
I've heard.
having them next door would be very, very nice addition to your area, and encourage people to span out a little bit more than next door and enjoy doing this in other areas would be absolutely fantastic. We know they're great people. I'm really looking forward to this.
Fantastic. Thank you, Vice Chair. Looks like we're all heading to District 2. All right. Thank you, Councilwoman. Karen, 6D.
Okay, this is in the Hickson area, rezoning from R2 to C2 convenience commercial zone for a restaurant and office. This property has frontage on Hickson Pike and Old Hickson Pike. Just as a mix of uses in the area. The plan has a recommendations, the property spans to those two streets. For the Hickson Pike side, it recommends a medium business mix. For the Old Hickson Pike side, it recommends a residential, single-family dwellings up to our higher density residential mix. Because the requested C2 zone permits some really high-intensity uses, both staff and Planning Commission found that because it's in part compatible, they're recommending approval for C2, which is the requested zone for the property that fronts on Hickson Pike, and then denying C2, but recommending O1 office zone for the rear of the portion along Old Hickson Pike and conditioning that to a landscape buffer where it abuts the R2 residential zone. And this is really intended to keep the commercial uses, heavier commercial uses along Hickson Pike and directed away from Old Hickson Pike where there are some residential properties. This was presented at Planning Commission, this option, and the site plan that was submitted with the application did show an office use, and the applicant did convey that this was acceptable to him.
Very good. Thank you, Karen. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Karen, I did see on the site plan as well that they are proposing a curb cut on Old Hickson Pike. Has that been approved? Do we know?
I don't believe it's been approved, and we probably spent 45 minutes talking about access and connectivity and one way in, one way out. And I believe it was determined it was best handled through the permitting process. As we talked about, would that be a potential condition? And in talking to our transportation partners, it was determined that that would not be a recommended condition.
Okay. Are there conditions that are recommended is my second question.
Just for the O1 portion, which is that back portion, because it abuts that residential property, the recommendation is a type B, which is
So
that
it's just a
20-foot
landscape
landscape.
buffer as a
So it
condition.
bumps it up a little bit just to acknowledge that you do have the, on the site plan, it's showing that drive aisle on that side. So that concept was to have a little bit more robust landscape buffer to provide some additional protection to that residential property.
Do you know if we've seen anything other than this as far as the intent for the commercial piece? Do you know what they're wanting to do?
Other than the site plan, the applicant, I don't remember, I don't believe spoke at Planning Commission, so I don't have any other information.
Okay. And I don't know if this is for your office or the applicant. But in this case, I want to know exactly what they're planning to do, and I will most likely be conditioning it to whatever it is they say they're going to do.
Okay.
As I've had a development down the road that was going to be a restaurant turn into a car wash that is now right next to neighborhoods. So I'll be very careful in the future not to allow just generic commercial to go in with the assumption of what it's going to be.
Okay, and I'll contact the applicant, have them be prepared, let them know they need to be prepared.
That would be great. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Vice Chair. Karen, you'll make sure that applicant knows
I
that
will.
conversation probably needs to take place this week.
Okay, I will.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Vice Chair. Item E, please, Karen.
This is in the East Brainerd area, just north of Hamilton Place, the Waterside Development. The request is to amend a condition of a former ordinance that rezoned the property to C4. The proposed use is vehicle car sales or vehicle repair facilities. When this property was rezoned in 2016, there was a very robust list of conditions that went along with it, listing all those things there, including square footage, buffers, landscaping, green space. And one of those conditions was this list of prohibited, which includes vehicle sales or vehicular repair facilities. And that's for a larger site than what the applicant's looking at. So the applicant's requesting lifting that or amending that condition for the property shown in blue. And the majority of those properties have, I guess it's not frontage, but they abut I-75. And so again, it's showing the area in yellow is that area where they're asking just to lift or amend those and allow those two uses. And planning and staff and planning commission had a similar recommendation and findings that this is appropriate at this location and that allowing those portions of those parcels to have vehicle sales or vehicular repair facilities at that location was reasonable, but all other conditions in that ordinance for the waterside rezoning carry forward.
Very good, Karen. This is in District 4. I am familiar with Waterside and its zoning ordinance, and I support this as well. So seeing no further lights, item F, please.
This is Highway 58, rezoning from C5 to C2, about 9 acres for a self-storage boat and car dealership. And the property is just west of the Enterprise South area to orient you. And there's a real mix of zoning and land uses at this location. And the plan for the area recommends a lower intensity retail business professional mix. And the C2 zone really allows those more intense uses. So staff recommended, because the request is partly compatible with the plan, to deny C2 for the back portion of the property. And I can show you that here in a minute. And really just recommend C2 for the portion of the properties that just front along Highway 58, with recommending prohibiting commercial signs and billboards. This is partly in response to the Mimosa Circle neighborhood, which is just to the south of this site. There's a little bit of difference in topography there, and staff was just concerned about the impact on that neighborhood. So there was no opposition at Planning Commission, but the applicant had done some additional site work and turned in a revised site plan at Planning Commission, and also recommended some conditions, which are shown here. And Planning Commission is recommending approval with the conditions listed. And they do address some of the transition between this site and the Mimosa Circle site.
Very good, Karen. And if I may, the conditions were self-imposed based on RPA's comments about the back corner of that property. And at Planning Commission, I had a list of conditions on my own, which almost exactly mirrored those conditions, except for one. And I do appreciate, because that's a weird shaped, irregular shaped piece of land that really renders it useless because it's landlocked. And I think those conditions, but I will cease that conversation right now and go to the council representative from that district, Councilman Hester.
Thank you, Chairman. You're right, most of the circle, they do have concerns regarding this. There's gonna be a 30-foot buffer, 40-foot buffer, correct? And
Yes.
that's- What type of buffer? Is that just land buffer, landscape buffer? I
Landscape
see, I
buffer,
see,
sir.
I see.
Yeah, they increased it
Okay.
on their own.
Okay, and there is opposition to this. So I think I want to push it off for 2 more weeks. We'll come together. 2
You'll make
weeks.
that,
Right, I'll make a decision. in
make
2
that known
weeks.
by next week at our first reading.
2 weeks.
Yeah, that's where we'll have to do that.
First reading?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
You can defer it, make a motion to defer at that time.
okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Thank you. Karen, item G, please, seeing no other lights.
This is the one case I mentioned at the beginning that had opposition, people in opposition at Planning Commission. This is property on Shallowford Road at the corner of Shallowford Road and Edgemond Forest, requesting rezoning to R3 with conditions for multifamily dwellings. So the property shown to the west was rezoned to R3, and they would like to incorporate this property into that overall development. So the overall development will be 7.7 acres. And the proposed section that we're talking about for rezoning is 2.1. So the site plan shows the entirety of it, but this is really focusing on that 2.1 acres at the entrance to at Edgemond Forest. So I did note the sign that the the opposition at Planning Commission had some questions about notification. So we did cover that at Planning Commission, but I put the sign in there also to let the person just as to reinforce that. The VA clinic was rezoned across the street in 2016. The property to the west was rezoned to R3 with 5 conditions in 2020. So there's been some recent activity at the site. The plan, the Shalford Road plan was updated for this area after the road was widened. And the plan recommends R4 special zone with conditions for this site in particular. And then notes that recommendations for the site saying expanded uses such as offices may be appropriate if the existing structure is used, as this will help ensure compatibility with the Edgemond Forest neighborhood. And part of that policy is really looking at compatibility with Edgemond Forest. So staff had found and Planning Commission both found that the request is an extension of an existing zone. And due to the changing nature of the nearby land use is really talking about that rezoning to R3 to the west and the VA clinic to the north, that a rezoning to R3 is reasonable as long as there are appropriate conditions addressing the impact on Edgemond Forest neighborhood. And so the Planning Commission's recommending approval with a list of conditions there. And they're pretty robust, addressing everything from building height, an entrance sign, landscaping, access, and that comes with a recommendation to approve from Planning Commission with those conditions.
Very good, Karen. Dr. Burrs, before I call on you, can I take a point of privilege and go back to case 0169? Karen, did we note for the record that a new site plan was submitted at the time of Planning Commission that reduced the original use of the number of buildings and also flipped them to be more on the northern side versus abutting Mimosa Circle? I just want to make sure that was noted for the record in case the councilman did not see that new site plan. It was presented at Planning Commission just for your consideration. Thank you.
And I will confirm that it's in the packet, but I also will email a copy of the Keller site plan, just so you have it. It shows a little bit more detail.
Thank you. I think that was an important note. Dr. Burrs, thank you for your patience.
Thank you, sir. This has been an interesting case. This has been going on for over a year now. Let me say that the applicants have had all the proper meetings and the neighborhood has been present. When we had the most recent meeting, will you go back to the map that shows? Yeah, well, you actually had a better one that showed that, yeah. So this meeting that we had was only about the territory outlined in red. There were 2 ladies who were extremely upset, and it kind of went overboard. I was present at all the meetings. The applicant has had several meetings. The neighborhood has talked a lot about it. The bottom line is that they went back to the original large plot and accused the Planning Commission of having secret meetings and not following the Sunshine Act. I mean, it was a pretty rough meeting. So for the record, Mr. Chair, since I was not there and since you all are supposed to have done these nefarious things, could you just explain that process was followed? I mean, it was pretty rough. I would like that on the record.
Sure. And that's one of the, it is confusing for citizens when it's a portion, they show this whole site plan for, educational purposes, but we're just talking about a little sliver. So whenever there's a question about our process, I defer to section 38-672 of the zoning ordinance. And for those of you who've been around for a while, you'll remember when that section went in. I think it was last week in 2015. But the idea was to codify the requirements for notification. And it doesn't say in there, but we do put a legal notice for Planning Commission and the Herald. We require them to post a sign, and it's a very robust with lots of language and requirements. I'm giving you an overview. The language says that we will notify the regional planning agency, will notify the neighborhood association contact person on file with the RPA and all property owners of properties that abut the area of the request. So not maybe the whole area, but just those properties that butt the request. We also, as part of this, send a copy of the application onto the council member. We provide the sign. We do have there's A through I of what's required about the sign posting. And we also, I think that's it. So legal notification for planning commission, post the sign. I showed the picture there, notifying the neighborhood association. That is who we have on file. There might have changed. We might not have that. And then the notifying the abutting property owners, just those impacted directly by the request. And we keep in our file, what letter did we send and who did we notify? When I pulled this up in our file, I think I saw maybe there were 6 or 8 property owners that should have received a letter from us that our records show we sent a letter to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I feel like at least 2 people will be here next week to repeat what they said apparently at the Planning Commission. And they will probably repeat the same information. The developer, or the applicants, for the record, followed all the rules for meetings, et cetera. And I know we don't have people testify here, and I'm not asking for that. I noted that Mr. Price is here, and he probably wants to hear all this. The applicant, the people that are very concerned, the one lady particularly has asked that I share all their string of complaints with all the council members. And so I've had them printed up to hand out to you all if you would like copies of all their strings of complaints about how illegal things were done. And I have contacted Councilman Byrd and Councilman Ledford and shared with them the concerns because they have interest in the area as well. Finally, I did contact the Neighborhood Association president, who said that there was no need for a meeting, and I will read what he said again in writing. I said, I am concerned that your neighborhood association, with the exception of several members, is not opposed. Am I correct that your neighborhood association, with the exception of several members, is not opposed to the rezoning for the apartment project? The response is, and I'll be happy to give it to you all, is that would be correct. We did not take a formal vote, but the concerns I have received have been with respect to the conditions that are attached. I've not heard, I have no compelling reason why the rezoning should not go forward, however. So I'm putting all that in the record for my colleagues because next week might be a bit of a challenge. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Councilwoman,
Karen.
Dr. Byrd. So Karen, I want to make sure as the planning and zoning chairman, that process was followed completely because that was, I take that any accusation like that very seriously. And I want to make sure that RPA did post the appropriate signs, or the signs were posted by the applicant. And I believe Edgemond Forest is one way in, one way out situation. So there's no way anyone in the neighborhood could have missed the sign. And I believe that is correct in my research, and that the adjacent property owners were notified by mail.
That's correct. And I'll have just a slide with some additional reinforcement of dates for that.
Okay, will we have a picture of the sign on site?
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Dr. Byrd, anything else on this case?
No, we'll wait till next week, but thank you very much.
Very good. I appreciate that very much. Karen, item H.
Moving down to the River to Ridge area, rezoning from R3 to UGC General Commercial Zone for parking and multifamily development. There's urban general commercial zoning there shown to the east in the red, and a manufacturing zone immediately to the west. This is about 2 blocks north of Main Street. You've seen a lot of urban general commercial zoning in the area. And just to orient you, the property does abut the National Cemetery. So staff and planning commission had somewhat similar findings that the request is compatible with the Area 3 plan, adjacent land uses and development form. But after discussion of building height, planning commission recommended approval of the UGC with the following condition: residential use only, to align with the plan recommendation.
Very good. Councilman Byrd, any comments? You're good? Thank you. Appreciate your hard work on that. All right. Seeing no other lights, Karen, item I, please.
Okay. Moving just south by a block, a rezoning from M1 to UGC. Proposals mixed use at there's 42 units and 24.7 units in acre density. The property does have frontage on Main Street. So kind of a mix of uses. This area is transitioning. So there's a lot of projects under construction, some vacant, some residential, and kind of in, office and manufacturing uses. So in this case, staff and planning commission had the same findings and recommendations, that it's compatible with the plan, adjacent land uses and development form. But because of the remaining residential pockets and some additional residential projects being built, recommending and prohibiting some of the more intense commercial uses for the site. And this is a pretty standard condition that we've used multiple times in this area for UGC in order to help implement the plan recommendation.
Very good. Councilman Byrd, they are building in
Mhm.
District 8.
I know, look at God. Quick question, is this the old Fox?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. Go. Good.
Great project.
Mhm.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your leadership on that.
Appreciate you.
Item J, Karen.
Okay. This is a rezoning from R1 to R4 special zone in the Highland Park neighborhood for an insurance office and residence. And you have seen a couple cases just north of here recently. The property across the street got rezoned not too long ago. That was at the corner of East 14th and South Highland Park, right across from that warehousing facility. So the plan recommends primarily residential uses. It does have secondary uses for offices on A streets. A streets are the major streets in the area, and not kind of what we would view as East 14th Street. And they're listed in the plan. And I'm sorry, I don't have the list in front of me of A Street. So staff thought the request was not compatible with the plan, land uses and development form, and was concerned about it setting a precedent and recommended denial. There was no opposition at Planning Commission, but we did receive emails in support of the project. And there was lots of discussion. Planning Commission found that it could be compatible with the 5 conditions listed there, although it's last on the list, limiting it to residential or office use only, and then addressing height, signage, and parking location. So this is a recommendation from Planning Commission to approve R4 special zone with the conditions there. And really it's trying to integrate that pretty low density office use into that neighborhood.
Very good. Karen, I'm going to let Councilman Byrd, I know you are in support of this. You want to tell us why, when we do a denial, take a denial staff recommendation and basically do the opposite. I think it's important for folks to know why. And it's when because of public involvement and input. And Councilman Byrd, I'm going to let you walk us through why this one is such a neat case for that area. Hit your light, sir. There you go.
Can you hear me? Yes, talking to the residents and the owner of this project, the community is just really embracing this company coming in, and with the community, Highland Park being such a very vocal community, to see them all jump aboard and say, hey, this is something our community needs. That's what we're here to do, is be the voice for that community. Hank and his wife has a State Farm business, and that will be moving over there to this location, and it will service the neighborhood as well. So to have something like that that can service the neighborhood, give the neighborhood insurance, and also help some of those that maybe be less fortunate to can't get to insurance companies, I think this is something that will help out a lot.
Excellent leadership, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Seeing no other lights. Item K.
So this is rezoning from M1 to urban general commercial zone for townhouse dwellings. 6 units at 18.75 dwelling units an acre. It's on South Watkins Street, 300 feet to the north of East 23rd Street. And staff found the request is compatible with the Area 3 Plan Land Uses and Development Form. Planning Commission had a similar finding, and with prohibiting some uses. There is a residential property across the street, and then maximum building height of 3 stories, just to keep it compatible with the surrounding development form.
Thank you, Karen. Councilwoman, anything? All right, well then you've done our job there. Very good. Thank you so much. Item L, please.
Okay. This is rezoning from M2 to C3 Central Business Zone with conditions for an expansion of Milltown development. This is to the eastern side of Milltown. Dodds Avenue is just about a block away. And it's just a little less than a half an acre on East 16th Street. So you see Milltown development kind of taking up several blocks there to the left of the site there. So staff and planning commission had similar recommendations and finding that it was compatible with the plan, land uses and development form. And to be in line with the plan, recommended the prohibition of the uses shown there. So this is a approved C3, and just a reminder that City Council amended C3 probably 4 or 5 months ago now, and there is now a whole set of standards in there to really reinforce urban development form.
Thank you, Karen. I was going to ask you to remind us of what we had done on C3, and this is the tool already being used to address some of those hurdles. Councilwoman, are you good? I knew you would be on this. Thank you for your leadership. Item M, Karen.
Okay, similar expansion of Milltown, and this one is to the western side of Milltown and on South Lyerly Street. The plan for the recommends the River to Ridge plan recommends a traditional neighborhood pattern with a wide range of housing types. So staff and planning commission both recommended approval, found it was compatible with a condition of residential use only to reinforce the recommendation in the plan. And this is does abut residential property, so that does help with that compatibility.
Very good. Thank you, Karen. Councilwoman, I think you're competing with Councilman Byrd. Oh. You've got it going on over there, that's for sure. Karen, item N, please.
Okay. Rezoning from R2 to R3 residential zone. There's an existing triplex, and the applicant would like to bring that into conformity. On East 19th Street, it's 350 feet to the west of Dodds Avenue. This is just a picture of the existing development. And this is a little unusual in that both staff and planning commission supported it. The plan supports it, but staff felt based on the math, the existing lot size would not allow that triplex to come into conformity. So both staff and planning commission recommended denying the request of R3, but approving the urban general commercial zone with conditions to allow that triplex to come in conformity based on his lot size, but for that residential use only. So it does enable the requested development, but it allows that to happen. It's perhaps something that the applicant was not aware of, the lot size requirement.
And Karen, one of the important tasks that we do is when we do something like that at Planning Commission, it is with the approval of and understanding of the applicant on site. So nothing is done outside of their will, so to speak.
Right. The applicant did not speak to any concerns about the UGC at Planning Commission.
Very good. Speaking of concerns, Councilwoman. Well, you're knocking them out over there. Congratulations. Thank you, Karen. You want to talk about our exterior building material requirements?
Sure. This is triggered by a change to state law. Every spring, we adapt to some of the changes to state law regarding zoning and development. So TCA state acted on added a regulation that that states that um, a jurisdiction shall not prohibit a particular construction material that is approved by a national building code or the state fire marshal. And this is in a section of TCA that is not the zoning and planning section. So we were relied on the city attorney's office and LDO to assist us with us. But basically, the regulation prohibits jurisdictions statewide from prohibiting a construction material, although you can adopt standards regulating it. So you can't say, no, you can't use brick, but you could say, brick should be used in moderation or something along that line. So we drafted some regulations that adds a new section into the zoning ordinance that reaffirms the state law requirement. And then there were 3 places in the zoning ordinance where it actually prohibited a use. One section, pre-engineered metal buildings shall be prohibited. That's actually used twice. And then there's a section in the RZ1 zero lot line zone that said that a building must be, or excuse me, a wall must be solid masonry and nothing else is allowed or something. So we tried to do a thorough review of the zoning ordinance by looking for prohibited, permitted, metal, brick, anything. We did give Planning Commission a heads up. We probably did miss something if it was written unusually. But before you is addressing state law by putting the state law section in, and then meeting that state law by removing any place where it says a use is a building material is prohibited.
Very good. Karen, I don't see any lights, but thank you to you and your staff for staying on top of these conditions and reviewing them and keeping us in line with state law on so many items. That takes a lot of time, I know, and I appreciate it. And I know this council appreciates your hard work on that and your staff. Thank you. We have 2 resolutions this afternoon. Karen, you want to walk through item H for us?
Sure, I'm actually going to cover them. They're companion cases at 1601 Eucalyptus Drive. The first case is a request to abandon an existing special permit for a PUD. So Eucalyptus Drive is about 1 block east of Northmore Road. And they would like to make a change to the PUD because it's a major modification. It would be a new application. So the first action would be to abandon the PUD, which was recommended and supported by staff and Planning Commission. And the second would be to put the new PUD in place. It's 44 townhouse units, 1.2 acres of community space, and it is zoned for RTZ and the PUD on top of that. So staff found, and Planning Commission both found that this was compatible with adopted 2004 North Brainerd Area Plan, adjacent land uses and development form of the area, and recommended approval. And I have a kind of a shot of before and after here, which was the proposed. So the existing is the one that would be abandoned, and then the proposed, just showing what is the requested in the new PUD.
Thank you, Karen. So item I is obviously a companion piece to this. Councilman Hester, you have any questions on this?
Correct. And I'll note that it was, it received its original PUD permit in 2007 and just was never developed. Let me see if I have normally I have a kind of a hidden slide if there isn't a flood area. I don't have one here, but it sits very, very low and will have to have a lot of fill, is what was conveyed.
Karen, Councilman, are you good? Good for now, right? Okay. Karen, does this abandonment of PUD and reintroduction of a new PUD, does that decrease or increase any of the density levels?
It will increase the density. The existing PUD is at 5.93. The new PUD is at 7.69.
Okay.
But I'll note that it is a PUD, but the property is zoned RT1, which is a little unusual. it's not unusual in that it's not done, but it is an RT1 zone property. It was rezoned in 1985.
So its current zoning is RT1.
Yeah, yes, sir. So it allows that townhouse development. They do want a PUD to have a little bit more flexibility in design.
Councilman, may I ask a question? Have you been contacted by the developer or applicant on this change? Karen, can I recommend that contact happens this
I
week?
will.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councilman. That takes us to the end of our 15
One,
count agenda. That wasn't so bad, was it?
might address one more item that's on an upcoming agenda, but I didn't know where to put it. It's just a special permit for an existing liquor store. It's under planning on the 16th. So I wanted to get it here. We don't place those on the agenda. The city attorney's office did, but it's under planning. So I thought I'd just note that it's coming up.
Try to sneak it in there. Okay, that's fine, Karen. Karen, thank you again for your help and your staff's efficiency in working through a lot of details so that when they come to the committee every month, you get a packet. This is mine. It's extra thick as the planning chair. And each member gets a packet to go over their cases, and each member of this body spends quite a bit of time working through these issues. And I appreciate your diligence and again, your engagement, because it helps this process go smoothly, professionally, and makes sure that public input is taken into consideration on all of our decisions. And I think that's incredibly important. Anything else before this body that we need to address? Chairman, do we have any other business this afternoon? Then I will adjourn us until 6.